Okay, so again, once again, welcome along to In Conservation With. Before we actually crack on with our conversation, I must thank our sponsors, and I always get it wrong which way the way I point. You've got to do the opposite. Koa Sporting Optics, the manufacturers of the renowned Promenade series of spotting scopes, and also to Birds, Wildlife, and Nature, who are the tour company that strive to deliver the best in wildlife watching opportunities around the world. So thank you very much, guys, for being there to sponsor us. So for those who do not know too much about Hilary, I mean, how long have we known each other, Hilary? For a good couple of years now, surely.
Oh, a bit more than a couple of years. I mean, I think about this, and I remember. I definitely met you at Bird Fair. That's when it was British Bird Fair. It's now Global Bird Fair, and I think I came to one of your talks and introduced myself. That would have been quite a number of years ago. Can't remember which year, but at that time I was connected to the Rwandans even back then, and I invited you and encouraged you to come along to their Visit Rwanda stand, and you did, and that was nice. So we got connected from then on, and I saw you at Bird Fair most years after that, as many people do, because you're a big supporter of Bird Fair, and now you've invited me to this, so it's very exciting. Thank you.
Well, like I say, it's great to have you, and it's really nice the fact that you were initially someone like the Zoomers here now watching, and then the next moment you're actually here talking, which is great. And that's an inspiration for you guys if you're watching this um, live on Zoom, or if you're watching this on Facebook, or for those of you watching in the future. And by the way, if you do watch this in the future, it's going to be on YouTube along with the other 200 plus interviews. And if you do watch any of them, including this amazing one, which is going to happen today, please like and subscribe. I haven't got all the bells and whistles, so just have to do it manually, get on your computer and like and subscribe. Leave a comment, that'd be nice as well. But anyway, Hilary, your passion for bird life and nature, I guess, has really bloomed, I guess, since retiring in 2014. Wasn't that the case? And after 32 years of being a chartered town planner in the
Yes,
UK.
indeed. Yes. I'm still a chartered town planner, brackets retired, but I don't practice anymore. My virtually my entire career was in Scotland, and my last job during that time was with the Cairngorm National Park Authority, which was a very, very good job, a very nice job. And I think during those 30 years, I always had birds in the background. I always had nature in the background, going right back to when I was a child. So the interests of the whole conservation and nature um, uh, ecosystem, if you like, was very much in mind when I was working. And I would sometimes send things off to nature conservation NGOs, which perhaps might not have otherwise come to their attention. So I was in a position to do that, and sometimes it was very effective. So it was always in the background there. But after 2014, when I retired, I really got into uh, bird watching in a much bigger way. It actually started in about 2011 when I started on the British Bird Atlas up in Aberdeenshire in the forests up there. And actually, that's where I really came to realize that I needed to know about bird sound, bird songs and calls, because when you're surveying in a forest for the atlas, you don't see a great deal, but you hear everything. And so I really set about very rigorously trying teaching myself the bird sounds of at least all the common birds, and it went from there really. So after 2014, yeah, I had been at Bird Fair for a few years by then. I knew the Rwandans, and I got to Rwanda in 2015.
Okay, well, let's rewind for a second. I'm always interested when people talk about, let's decided to start watching birds. What made you, what made you decide to start watching birds? And also, do you remember the very first bird you recognized?
Oh yeah, very clearly, because I was probably 7, and I would go bird watching with my mother on our family farm in Shropshire. And in those days, back in when I was 7, which is over 50 years ago, bird life was much richer in the British countryside, and I saw a lot of birds at that time, and sadly don't see now in the same places. We had nesting curlew, lapwing, yellowhammer, and all those sorts of things, which are now sadly missing in many places. So I'm very much into campaigning to work on public funding for nature and the whole conservation scene. So yeah, the first bird I remember was with my mum, and it was actually, we found a wren's nest, and you know how cute they are, and that just hooked me really. So yeah, very common bird. The wren is the first one I remember, and we found a little nest. I've never touched or been involved in egg collecting. It's an abomination, but she taught me from an early age to stand back and look from a slight distance, which is what we did.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a young toddler, a youngster anyway, um, I had a brush with egging. I didn't actually egg myself, but I remember the first person I ever actually went birding with, or was taking me out to show me birds was um, one of the foremans at my dad's work. He worked in a factory, and the foreman came and picked me up, and I never met this guy before. And he took me in his Morris Minor to some distant gravel pit. I mean, certain sort of stuff you'd never do now with all the stranger danger stuff. I mean, going out with a guy I never met before. But this guy was an egger, but he taught me to sit and work out where nests were, but not to interfere, which was great. I'm glad he didn't teach me that. So that
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah.
And it went completely quiet, so I hope others didn't. But let's carry on.
No, it's all good. Your focus, just again for people who don't know about you, has been to raise the skills and confidence of wildlife guides from small communities to improve their job effectiveness. Yeah. And this and the need to
Yeah,
build data for applications such as Merlin has led you to a multi-year effort in bird sound recording using citizen science methods developed by eBird. And the program is novel in Africa and has proved very successful and popular. And one of your challenges is to find and record the scarcer species in Rwanda. So in 2025, you led an expedition, and I won't pronounce, is it Nyungwe Forest National
Nyungwe,
Park?
Nyungwe,
Nyungwe, okay.
Nyungwe.
And that's a UNESCO Biosphere site in the southwest of Rwanda in pursuit of a bird called the Shelley's Crimsonwing. And that's when I mean, I knew about you, what work you were doing, but that's what piqued my interest a few years ago when I noticed you were talking about that bird fair. And the success of that project has been widely recognized and continues as you seek to embed Planet Birdsong as a locally led and managed entity. I know you're talking about the the whole sort of scheme or project in the UK as well. But I'm very interested when we get onto Rwanda to talk to you about Rwanda because obviously Rwanda has a very good bird life in terms of numbers of species and stuff, and we'll find that out shortly. But of course, there's lots of negatives attached to the country. I don't know if you want to talk about that now or we talk about the UK side of things first, and you actually explain what Birdsong and the Birdsong project is.
Okay, well, let's just crank back slightly. I mean, Planet Birdsong is a foundation, it's UK. There's 4 trustees, and we're all about bringing bird sound to the attention of the public at large, ordinary people in the UK, abroad. We're trying to go fairly global, that's our objective. And in Rwanda, following my involvement with training bird guides and in leading international visitors to best effect, I moved into bird sound because actually that goes back to my visit there in 2015. And in preparation for that, I downloaded from Xenocanto, which is a global collection, a global commons collection of bird sounds, all the sounds that were available from Rwanda and the immediate area. And in 2015, I could only find 120 actual recordings of mainly very common birds. And I realized also when I got to Rwanda that a lot of these sounds didn't apply, because a lot of species have a very big range of 3,000, 4,000 kilometers, and they didn't sound the same in Nyungwe Forest in Rwanda compared with where they were made elsewhere. In Kenya, a lot of the recordings were made, and a lot of in Tanzania. So rolled on a bit. In that bird fair again in 2018, I had this idea in the back of my mind that I had to do something about this and expand my bird guide training in Rwanda. And I was fortunate enough to meet, and a lot of meetings happen at bird fair purely by chance. And I was fortunate to meet Peter Cowdrey, our founder, and he was connected with me over this by James Hogg, who is an extremely good birder in East Africa and is in fact the reviewer for eBird for a number of East African countries. And he was there, and we were all standing there talking, and we got into this idea about taking bird sound training to Rwanda. Okay. I set about, during the COVID years, I set about training myself up in simple audio recording. I'm not a sound recordist, I'm not a sound engineer, and I can't say I'm an expert in random birds, but the objective was to come up with a system which was usable by ordinary bird guides and citizens in general to record bird sound, understand it, get that expose to nature, which always inspires enthusiasm and passion, and start to use those skills to upgrade their bird guiding skills. Because as we've already said, you do a great deal better either as a bird watcher or a bird guide if you know sound. If you walk through a forest and know sound, you can hear everything, even if you can't see it. So this was the concept. And we, over the COVID years, I worked with Peter and our technical support and collaborator, Mark Adams, who developed the parabolic reflector we use to develop a system using a phone, a parabolic reflector, and the resource is published already by eBird for citizen scientists to go out and record bird sound. And from that, I developed a set of training slides, which were broken down basically into a set of detailed instructions for the beginner, so that a citizen science could start from scratch, pull out their phone, perhaps with or without a parabolic reflector, go out and record sound and then do something with it. In other words, process it a little bit on a digital audio workstation, and then upload those sounds to wherever they felt they wanted to. We use eBird because basically I use their resources, so I felt kind of obliged to upload the data to eBird, but we're certainly not obliged to do that in any contractual way. That these bird sounds can be sent to the Rwanda Biodiversity Information System or wherever we choose. But we've stuck with eBird, and we now have a very strong working relationship with them because they've recognised the effectiveness of what we do in bringing this whole thing to citizen scientists in Rwanda, and they are seeking to expand that in Africa this year. You asked about the background in Rwanda. Yes, it has a hideous past. 31 years ago, they had a hideous genocide against the Tutsi, and this really defines their modern way of doing things. They've sought to develop and improve the country from really what was recognised as a basket case 50 31 years ago, to a very modern country developing into a middle-income country. They are working hard to modernize, bring all the infrastructure they need for a broad level of services for the people there. And their absolute underlying determination is to secure the country and make sure that there's never again a genocide in that country. So they're entirely governed by and steered by the concept of ensuring their security and securing their economy so that people can build up out of poverty and build up into a successful economic function, economic jobs. So training up and boosting tourism through bird guiding. We're very much interested in bird tourism, which is very good in Rwanda. Over the years, so we've done quite a lot to help promote bird watching and bird listening, actually, we want to call it bird listening, in Rwanda. And it's very much in line with the philosophy of the country today, because they are now doing really well. So we're intending to carry it on. We're just trying to find ways of carrying it on at the moment.
So is it right to say that it's a safe country to visit? Because, you hear a lot of stuff in the media, particularly when it comes to Africa, that almost feels to be sort of no-go areas. Is Rwanda, and I know the previous government were trying to send people, from immigrants for whatever from here to Rwanda. Is it a safe country to visit if I wanted to go on my own tomorrow for a week, for example?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd been 8 times, so I know it very well now. It's security is everything there, and the police are very effective. It's well governed. It is it's different to the UK. It's a bit more authoritarian, obviously, and you are expected to conform. But that's part of ensuring the security of the public. It's very safe for people visiting, for international visitors. Absolutely, I feel I can walk around Kigali or anywhere actually very, very safely. The roads are good. Driving around I don't drive, but traveling around on the roads is easy. It's not too big, so getting around is easy. There is a very nasty, unpleasant war going on in DRC right next door, but Rwanda is very well guarded, and it really is not coming over the border. It did with one very tiny little attack in Gisenyi a year ago, but that was stopped very abruptly. And now, and I was there in February last year, and I could move around the whole of Rwanda very safely, apart from 2 tiny bits where I didn't go, but that was right on the border with Congo. So it was actually UK government that barred that part. But apart from that, the entire country, I was free to move in. I felt very safe. It was very peaceful. People were going about their normal business, quite happy. And it is absolutely safe to move around in. Yes, very safe indeed.
Okay. Are you happy for us to see the film that you have brought today to show people about the work you do, or do you want to talk more?
Yes, I think it's a good time to show it. This is just to introduce it a little bit. We were fortunate enough to be made the subject of a short film. It's 7 minutes, made by the Rwanda filmmakers, the Rwanda wildlife filmmakers. And this is another volunteer group run by David McGowan. He's from Chicago in the States. He's a filmmaker, and he's been teaching people to make films, videos, media in general. And we were the subject, and he made a short film about us 3 years ago now. And we'll show it to you now, because it does explain what is going on in Rwanda, what Planet Birdsong are doing.
Okay. So let's go. Let's see if it works.
Yeah. Planet Birdsong is an organisation based in the UK and working with the University of Rwanda Centre of Excellence in Biodiversity and Natural Resource Management. And our mission statement is to engage with people to help them to realise that their environment is something which is worth valuing, and it helps them to observe and to listen to their surroundings, create data for science and assisting with the training of bird guides. And together we are using a citizen science programme which we believe is almost unique in the world because it draws in people who are not scientists to learn about sound recording and recording bird sound throughout Rwanda. Citizen science by definition needs simple, affordable, accessible equipment so that as many people as possible can learn the skills and then take out these skills and practice on their own. I've trained over 50 people now. Many of them are tour guides who are using this system to help them build their identification skills in bird sound recording, and by recording those sounds their identification skills are greatly improved. That's one really key aspect to our programme, as well as collecting good, strong sound data for science. We realise that the sounds of species on the Rwanda bird list are not widely recorded. So all these factors came together to lead us to promote the project in Rwanda. We chose this country because Rwanda is a very good example of a country with a very rich bird life, and also the people are very committed, they work hard, they are very enthusiastic and keen and reliable.
Since I was a child, I used to go for bird watching, listening to bird songs, calls. But after my class, I got a chance for joining Planet Birdsong trainings. Then I get very motivated and doing some excursions with some other recordists. Up to now, I still enjoy birding and recording. Those data are really very helpful for citizen science. Just awareness for conservation, for future research, for bird identification, and it improves my birding skills. The importance of recording birds data for the conservation of Rwanda is that they help bird guides just to know and location of the birds and their calls. It also contributes to tourism because when you are guiding tourists, sometimes you use those calls to identify birds. The data that we record demonstrate how Rwanda is special for bird songs. Sometimes we have some calls that are different from Kenya, from Uganda, from Tanzania, because the birds, they sing their call according to different elevation, habitat, and the food availability. So Rwanda is special for some sounds. That's why we record and we keep this data. I can encourage young generation to love birds, to love conservation, because they contribute even for personal development, for country development, and recording is a new activity. I recommend future generation, new recordists, to join different clubs that are just doing bird recording, and it is a free training. And I'm hoping that it will contribute a lot to biodiversity conservation.
And this is one way, particularly tour guides can develop their identification skills and become better guides for visiting tourists who want to see wildlife. So a little bit about the recording itself. As we connect the phone using the jack to the parabolic reflector microphone, and that connection feeds into the phone recording system and produces really quite reasonable recordings of the bird sound. So the objective is to collect mass recordings of birds throughout the country for use in natural resource management. So by finding ways to engage people in an interest in wildlife, an interest in birds, an interest in the environment through a citizen science programme, we believe that this is a model which we hope will spread and add to the huge amount of activity in conservation around the world.
That was a very lovely film, actually. I really enjoyed it, and plus it kind of really encapsulates
Thank you.
what you're trying to achieve, actually. And I think I think people really would appreciate that. So thank you very much. A couple of things that came from watching that for me. Well, the main question I wanted to ask, I mean, obviously you've contributed a lot to people like Zeno Canto. By the way, Zeno Canto, the one of the guys behind that, his name escapes me this very second, but we actually had him as a guest on In Conservation With about 4 years ago. So you can check him out on the list of In Conservation With interviews on YouTube on my channel, The Urban Birder. But you contributed a lot to Zeno Canto as well as eBird. How much, what percentage or how much have you actually contributed in terms of bird sounds to these organizations?
Well, actually, we don't upload to Zeno Canto. The reason for that is we support the eBird citizen science system for collecting bird sound. So our data has tended to go to eBird. But it is the case that all these World Commons collections of bird sounds are gradually being brought together. Trying to train people to use Zeno Canto has proved quite difficult. It's a little bit harder to use. So we developed our own system for uploading to eBird, and people are very familiar with using eBird lists. So combining the two as being, the way forward. So I can't say we've uploaded to Zeno Canto. I use that as an example of how limited bird sound collection along the Albertine Rift, which is the area of where Rwanda sits in Central Africa. Just to illustrate how limited bird sound collection in that area actually is, because I found 120 sounds recorded in Rwanda and environs in 2015. And I've just checked because I'm presently writing up a report about our Africa Bird Club Conservation Grant Award project year, which we've just finished. And the numbers in Zeno Canto have only risen to 1,700 from 120 in 11 years. And this is roughly the same area. And of those, 582 are in Rwanda. And to be honest, when I looked at the species, it's all virtually all quite common species. There's one with one exception. The task is still very great. eBird this year are promoting the big year of African sound, which is designed to get as many people in African countries to use citizen science and their skills to collect African sounds of songs and all the calls. So we want everything to submit these to eBird to improve the performance of AI modeling and train AI. Now, their particular concern is to try and get Merlin working in East Africa. and in Africa generally. But all this data goes into the Cornell Library of Sound and is used for a whole multiplicity of conservation projects. So Merlin is just one route, but Merlin is actually really important for bird tourism because everybody now around the world knows of Merlin and wants to use it. So if we can get it working in Rwanda, at least on the common species, then that would be a big step forward. But we're most concerned about getting decent base data into the Cornell library because that serves much wider conservation purposes. And we also send it to the Rwandan biodiversity collection of taxa, the Rwandan Biodiversity Information System, which is all taxa in Rwanda, where they keep a collection. So it has a huge number of functions and purposes for monitoring, for conservation reporting, for monitoring progress, for justifying projects. And there's a lot of projects going on which need bird data. So Xenocanto is very useful in the background, but we don't use it specifically for the project.
Okay. Now, you've obviously trained up people to go out and record these sounds. How does that training work? I mean, firstly, are these people, young people, are they keen to be involved, or is it one of those things they think, oh, I can do this because it saves me doing nothing, or whatever? And also, do you have to be to a certain quality in terms of being able to ID birds in order to start contributing in Rwanda?
Yes, well, they're certainly not doing nothing. They're mostly students, and mostly students of tourism and wildlife management. There are others involved who are at the university, but they're reasonably well educated people, but they're not scientists. So we've developed a system which is usable by non-academic scientists, ordinary people from widely across Rwanda, from the communities. And that has the advantage that they take what they've learned and their passion for wildlife back to their own communities. Rwanda is actually really good at integrating biodiversity education and nature, and the need for that to support the human public, the human population. They integrate that very much into their education system. So people generally have a pretty good feel for nature. It's also in the local sort of philosophy, culture. They're really very closely connected to nature. They realize how important it is in order to grow crops and survive. So we're really dovetailing into that. But like everywhere else, as they modernize, as they become more urban, as they slightly disconnect from their nature and their old background in the countryside, some of this can go a little bit missing. So by teaching people at this level, we encourage them to take what they've learned, even if they don't carry on and be guides, if they become something else, if they work in agriculture, if they work in government, in the economy somewhere else, in industry, they take a very close appreciation of biodiversity and the importance of it into those sectors. And so it has a wide application.
Yeah, sounds great in terms of getting these young people to understand that the environment's an important thing to preserve. And obviously when they go into their own fields, if they don't stay in conservation, they bring that with them. But in terms of tourism, absolutely. You mentioned tourism.
Yes.
Has wildlife tourism increased? And also, why do people other than wildlife come to Rwanda?
Okay, well, Rwanda, tourism in Rwanda is a major industry, and it's growing year on year. It's been a big plank in their economic development since over the last 30 years. And it really started with gorilla tourism in the Volcanoes National Park. And that is a unique and iconic species, which people want to come and see, the mountain gorillas. But it's expanded from there. They realise they've got very interesting savanna country in the east, where you can go and see the big five and the savanna animals. They've got very good bird life. They've got very good cultural offer. I mean, the culture is quite different from anything you'll find in Kenya or in Uganda or in the south in South Africa or Zimbabwe, or it's Central Africa, and it's the Great Lakes region. It's very lush green. It's forested by and large, and the culture of Rwanda is very specific. They have their own cultural way of doing things, their own dress, their own food, and it's really very, very interesting and unusual to our eyes. So it's very unlike going to some of the much better known countries. And it's a big, big, important thing, and will remain so. They're planning a big new airport. It's expanding very much at the top end, but they've actually realised they've got a whole segment of tourists who are either specialists, such as bird watchers, or wildlife watchers, or cultural tourists, or they've even realised recently their backpacking tourism is quite a big sector. People are coming independently, young people in particular, and they're now beginning to cater for that by promoting less expensive accommodation, things like that, ways of doing things. I've been encouraging them to cater for all sectors of tourism for quite a long time, and it's gradually coming through. So yeah, it's a very key sector.
No, it's really good to hear that because often, I mean, I've got a friend who's actually somewhere else in Africa now, I can't remember what country he's in, but he's saying it's absolutely, as much as the bird life's great, they're not set up for tourism at all. The internet's terrible, some of the accommodations not great. So that is some of the thoughts that I have sometimes in my head in terms of visiting a country, like Rwanda, but it's good to know that that's not necessarily the case.
No, the there's a whole sector geared towards training people for tourism in the vocational colleges, the Integrated Polytechnic of Rwanda. I mean, they are very keen on environmental health, for example. They're very clean and tidy, and they train their hoteliers and their staff in environmental health matters, good driving skills, good hospitality skills. And I would say this presents itself. You see this right down the sector, from the high-end hotels right down to the small guest houses. People are extremely welcoming. They know what they're doing. The front desk people are well trained, and that kind of setup is extremely good there. And it's not a case of going to a country which is way behind and has no setup whatsoever. It's completely different to that. It's very well set up.
Okay. Let's talk about the equipment because in the film, these kids are using parabolic reflectors.
Yes.
Sound recording is an interesting thing because in Britain, I mean, I've been birding a long time, and I know back in the day it was a preserve of people who are working for the BBC, and they had to bring a big truck, an articulated lorry here in order to record something like a blackbird. Then I think it kind of came back to prominence during the pandemic because people were stuck indoors, and even I found myself getting my iPhone out, leaving it on the roof to see if I can hear something. But people began to use parabolic reflectors more often. But then, even though I really did like the idea of doing it, and I found it interesting, to record sounds. I look around me, and even to this day, I don't see too many people walking around with big parabolic reflectors. However, in your film, they have really nice small ones, which look quite inexpensive. How easy is it for someone to kind of pick this up and get involved in it? Do you need to be technically astute to understand music? And secondly, what kind of price range are we talking about? Could someone, in Europe, Britain, America, pick this up?
No, yes. Sorry, breaking up.
Carry on.
Yeah, sorry, you broke up, so I wasn't sure if you'd finished or not. But I started from scratch. I'm not a technical person particularly. I actually steered away from the Wildlife Sound Recording Society because they are quite techy and they're into quite fancy equipment. And I wanted to concentrate on making this simple system work. So I focused very much on that, and I've taught myself the basics of acoustic recording and passed that on. And yes, the equipment, parabolic reflectors are expensive. If you want to go out and buy a Talinga, you're talking about $2,000 or so, way beyond anything we can do in terms of taking it to Rwanda, and way beyond most people's pockets. So what we have is Mark Adams. He's from Time and Space Learning in Northamptonshire. We have his Parachirp parabolic reflector. And here's just a little bit of a proper closer. But we've developed this, and I field tested these to death, really, to distraction. We've got various versions of them now. And they use either the phone directly into the parabolic reflector. If I get a see, there's a phone plate there. So that means you can use the phone microphone without. We've had a bit of a problem with microphones failing in Rwanda.
Could you show us?
I prefer to use a.
Yeah, can you show us again? We just lost.
I'm trying to show it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to show it to you and show it on the screen.
All right.
The microphone sits in the center and the focal point. That's the critical bit. It has to be a parabola, not a bucket. It has to be a parabolic shape. And the sound comes in, it's bounced down to the focal point in the center. My lighting is not good at all. I wish I could show you more closely. And here we place a microphone. This is an ordinary lavalier microphone for interviewing people. Nowadays we try to buy a reasonably good one. We get better results. The really cheap lavaliers, I'm afraid, just don't last very well or don't work very well with microphone. This is a Sennheiser, and that comes out at the back. Light on that. It comes out of the center back, and the phone sits on the back plate here, so that I can hold it up and see the phone in front of me. And that's being a true parabola means it actually works very well. The big commercial parabolas are a little bit bigger diameter. The reason for that is that the wider the diameter, the lower the frequencies of sounds can just bounce past this. But for the vast majority of birds, this 25, I think it's 25 centimeter diameter parabolic, and trying to record a New Zealand pigeon. This is a big pigeon. It's bigger than a wood pigeon by about 50%. And its call was very low frequency. And that's the only one I've ever found, the only bird I've ever found I've been unable to actually record using this system, simply because of the frequency of its sound. Everything else we can manage very well. So it's very effective. And these are, yes, they're simple technology. They're meant to be. They're inexpensive. They're sold by Time and Space Learning online for, I think, around about, I think you would agree. And it continues to work, because as long as, even if it gets a little bit bashed up, and they do, they take a bit of, they're quite strong, but they take a bit of wear and tear. Even if they get quite bashed up, as long as this parabolic shape survives, it will work very effectively, as long as you've got a phone
I
with a
missed
reasonable microphone.
I missed
Yes?
how much it costs. You did mention, I think you cut out then.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's we're trying to get it into a form where it can go out as a complete kit, and I think with a microphone, you know, it's 50 or 60 pounds. It's the price has gone up slightly because of the various costs to make it a completely ready to go kit, which is assembled from a flat pack with no screws, no nails, no glue. It just clips together, and it very minute sizing, so it clips together very efficiently, and off you go.
Yeah, it sounds really good. What is the range again? So to put it into perspective, if you were in a wood in North America or Europe, what could you be? How near do you need to be to a bird, and does it need to be singing loudly or calling loudly?
You need to be ready to adjust the gain on the phone, the gain volume. If a bird is very close, say 3 meters, 4 meters away, that's really good, but needs to be turned down a bit. Otherwise, it will be screeching at you. Most recordings are best done at about 10 to 20 meters. It will pick up to about 40, but that is getting a bit difficult to hear because there's obviously competition from other birds. The parabolic reflector does block out quite a lot of surround sound coming from other directions, but it doesn't block it out completely. And there are other birds in the same direction as your target birds. So it's the further away you get, the more competition there is from other birds. But that's context to my mind. That's important for the context of the bird. And we do try to identify whatever birds we can hear in a recording. So the system works. Yeah, we get as close as we can because that does get the best result.
Okay.
And I have to say, sorry, but can I just put a big thank you actually to Chris Watson of the BBC. You mentioned BBC trucks and big wagons full of equipment and so on, but it was actually Chris Watson, and I think you were interviewing him. I was asking him for advice. He's he was, I'm not sure if he still is, the senior sound recordist for wildlife for the BBC. Very capable guy. And he gave me a few bits of advice about recording. And so I'm very thankful to him. And one thing he said was you always have to take account of wind and extraneous sound like shuffling feet and people talking. So we train that very hard. We train people to minimize that effect. Heavy rain is a no-no. You can't record in heavy rain. Sorry.
Shut up.
Okay.
Not you. I'm saying you train the student.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
It's easy for people to be chat. So we have to teach people to be quiet and to keep their feet still, because if you grate your feet in the gravel, it's very noisy.
Yeah.
And around here, where I am in Surrey, around Woking, one of my big problems is traffic noise and aircraft noise. Really difficult to
Let me ask you
that out.
the long game. What do you want to achieve with Planet Birdsong? I mean, I noticed on the film, by the way, if you watch this over again on In Conservation Move on YouTube, there is at the end of the film a little barcode, and it actually does work if you put your phone next to it and take a picture of it or whatever. And you can find out more about this. But what is your long-term plan? What do you want to see occur from this, briefly?
Yeah. Yes, Planet Birdsong is very actively pursuing expansion into other hubs in Africa in particular. We're hoping to expand into a new hub in Zambia, and we'd like to do more work with the Ugandans, the Kenyans, and continue to build things in Rwanda. The Rwandan hub will service Rwanda and hopefully other parts of East Africa. And we also have quite a good connection with Aplori, a university bird observatory and centre, ornithology centre in Nigeria. And we also have quite a good connection with Aplori, a university bird.
Carry on.
Yeah, the sound was coming back to me. I was hearing my own voice. Yes, the connection in Nigeria is to be developed. All of this is to be developed. We're trying to raise funds to allow us to continue. In Rwanda, we definitely need funds to essentially aid people to go out. It funds these young guys and girls to go out and travel to other parts of the country. The good birding areas, pays their expenses and encourages them to find time to go, because they're busy people. They're training, they're in college, they're students, they're trying to earn a living. Day-to-day living is hard there. You know, you've got to be using your hours very carefully. So going out and birding is not the enjoyable voluntary activity that we all enjoy in Europe and America. It has to have in a sense, it has to have an economic purpose to make it justifiable. So we try and assist with that.
Okay. What we've done, you will find links in not only the Facebook Live today, but also when you come to see this on YouTube, there will be links to Planet Birdsong, so you can find out about this amazing work that you guys are doing. I mean, it really is. I'm really happy and glad that you've come along today, Hilary, because what you're doing is very important work, and really appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. It's quite exciting. It takes up a lot of my time, all my time. I'm trying to kind of pull back on that a bit, but it's been my my life in many ways. I've got a family life as well. You know, I mustn't forget them. For 10 years now, and so we keep it going as much as we can. Yeah, good. It's been really nice.
And if there is a favorite Rwandan bird call or song, who is it by? Who's the singer, the caller, and what does it sound like verbally?
Well, I sent you a slide. I don't know if you can show it, of a little selection of Rwandan birds. Are you able to put it up?
Because no, can you? You can't, can you?
No, I don't think I can from this. No. Let me. No, I think I might lose you. I don't want to lose you. Anyway, my favourite Rwandan bird, I think, has to be the great blue turako. Our picture of it is going to prove a little difficult to show, but it's a big forest bird. For Europeans, it's about twice the size of a wood pigeon. Looks particularly big because it's got a long tail. Beautiful blues and reds, very attractive head with a big crest, and they tend to go around in pairs. We've managed to collect quite a lot of sounds from it. It's one of the sounds of the forest. I'm not going to even attempt to imitate it. I wish I could play it on here, but if you Google Great Blue Turako and go to eBird and press listen, that is a very useful resource for actually lots and lots of bird sounds, and you can hear the Great Blue Turako. The other one I would recommend, and everybody sees in Rwanda, is the white-browed robin chat. It's a very common bird. It's the one that starts to wake you up at about 3:30 in the morning. Beautiful song. We've got lots of nice recordings of it. But one thing you would discover when you start recording is the variety within a bird. You know, they don't just have one little phrase, which is the iconic phrase. They've got lots of phrases, lots of sounds, lots of calls in different situations, different individuals. And you can hear birds calling at each other, and they, you know, it's like a language. One has a slightly different sound to the other. And that's true everywhere. I mean, you can do that with blackbirds and thrushes and robins even. If you really listen, if you really open your ears to the sound, you can pick this up. But if you see it in a spectrogram, which we use a lot, we train those to the students, you can actually see it as a picture. And I find that most valuable for remembering the sounds of birds. So I recommend using a pictorial system, using a spectrogram if you want to learn bird sound really closely and want to study it closely.
Okay. Well, listen, we could chat all night about this, but you know, people have very short attention spans these days. So we're gonna have to kind of wrap it up a bit. But I'd like to thank you again, Hilary. It was great I spent a bit of time with Hilary in December. I can't remember when it was actually. It was in the autumn last year in Lithuania. We spent days chatting about this, and it's been really quite fascinating. But thank you very much for sparing your time, Hilary.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure and a joy to talk about it because it's an important thing, and thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure. So until we all meet again, by the way, don't forget, In Conservation With is online on YouTube. Go to my YouTube channel, which is called The Urban Birder, and you'll find a whole ton of interviews, including this one, which will be coming up. And also check out my website, theurbanbirderworld.com. Look under the In Conservation With to see who's coming next, because we have a few people coming. The season is between October and April, so quite a lot of people we're going to be speaking to, particularly during the cold winter nights in the Northern Hemisphere. So until we all meet again, and thank you, by the way, Zoomers, for being here as well. Until we meet again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for everybody for connecting Facebook and Zoom.
Yeah. Until we meet again, keep looking up.